Okay, let's jump right into this. Picture the scene, all right? It's the 1974 World Cup, literally the absolute pinnacle of global sports. Brazil, the defending champions, are lining up for a dangerously close free kick right on the edge of the penalty area. The whistle blows, the Brazilian players are prepping their world-class routine, and then, absolute chaos. A player from Zaire suddenly breaks from the defensive wall, sprints at full speed, and randomly blasts the ball as far away as he possibly can. The crowd is completely stunned. And the global audience watching at home, well, they erupted into laughter. The commentators mercilessly mocked him. But what we are looking at in this explainer today is absolutely not a blooper. It is actually one of the most chilling moments in sports history.
So, ignorance or survival? Really ask yourself, why would a professional athlete, someone who fought their entire life to reach the world's biggest stage, do something that looks so seemingly ridiculous? At the time, people just assumed he didn't know the rules. But what if I told you that kicking that ball away had absolutely nothing to do with ignorance, and literally everything to do with a desperate, frantic bid to stay alive? You see, there was a massive gap between what the world saw and what was actually happening. On one side, we have the world's reaction, laughter, mockery, and this really dismissive assumption of amateurism. But on the other side, a completely dark, hidden reality. These players were operating under unimaginable fear. They were trapped in the grip of a ruthless dictatorship, where every single move on that pitch was a matter of actual survival.
Let's get some context. Part 1. The bizarre World Cup moment and Zaire's historic debut.
Moving right into Part 2, Mobutu's broken promises and the dictator's lie. So back in 1974, Zaire achieved something truly monumental. They became the very first sub-Saharan African nation to qualify for the World Cup. It was a huge deal. But their dictator, Mobutu Sese Seko, completely hijacked this triumph. He promised the team immense wealth, we're talking cars and houses, if they secured qualification. But when the time actually came, the reality was incredibly stark. 0 bonuses were awarded, the players played beautifully, they absolutely held up their end of the bargain, but Mobutu gave them nothing.
Which brings us to Part 3, the fatal protest, a rebellion on the pitch.
Feeling intensely betrayed, the players staged a very dangerous, silent protest during their match against Yugoslavia. How? Well, they simply refused to try. They didn't put in the effort, they intentionally underperformed, and they made absolutely no attempt to score. The result of that? A shocking 9-0 defeat. It was a total demolition. But here's the catch. While the players viewed it as a protest, Mobutu viewed this globally broadcast 9-0 humiliation as a deep, personal insult.
That leads right into Part 4, a deadly ultimatum, and the presidential guard arrives.
Right before their final match against Brazil, Mobutu escalated things terrifyingly. Heavily armed presidential guards literally showed up at the players' hotel rooms with a lethal message. And it all hinged on a single number, 4. This wasn't some tactical goal set by a coach, it was a horrifying threshold. 4 was the absolute maximum number of goals the dictator decided they were allowed to concede against the reigning world champions.
The stakes were absolute. The guards delivered this chilling message: if you lose by 4 or more goals, you will never see your families again. He explicitly threatened that they would never be allowed to return home. You guys, this wasn't a metaphor. It was an immediate, highly credible death threat hanging over the head of every single player on that roster.
Let's just pause for a second and trace this timeline, just to really understand the immense psychological pressure here. Point 1, the euphoric high of World Cup qualification. Point 2, the bitter betrayal of being denied their bonuses. Point 3, that desperate 9-0 protest. Point 4, the horrifying arrival of the presidential guard and the death threat. All of this rapid escalation brings us right to Point 5, the match against Brazil. Over just a few days, these players went from national heroes expecting wealth to literal hostages playing for their lives.
Which brings us right back to the exact moment we started with, the 78th minute, the infamous free kick. Now that we have the context, everything changes. The match has started, and Brazil, who, remember, are the defending world champions, are completely dominating. In the first half alone, Brazil had already scored 2 goals, so the score is 2-0. They are inching dangerously close to that fatal threshold of 4. The high pressure and sheer panic among the Zaire players is reaching a boiling point. And then, Brazil gets a free kick just outside the box.
Looking through this new lens of survival, that bizarre kick makes total, absolute sense. Ilunga didn't run out there out of ignorance. Not at all. Step 1, break the Brazilian momentum. Step 2, waste precious match time. Step 3, above all else, prevent that 4th goal. It was a frantic, deliberate, tactical move to disrupt the game and save their own lives. And the tragic irony of it all? The clueless referee simply handed Ilunga a yellow card for the stunt while the whole world watched and laughed.
So, the match resumed. Zaire actually did concede one more goal after that frantic moment. But eventually, mercifully, the referee blew the final whistle. The final score, 3-0. 3 is less than 4. By the absolute slimmest of margins, by just one single goal, the players had technically survived the dictator's lethal ultimatum. They were going to live.
And finally, Part 5, the tragic aftermath and a bitter return.
Surviving that ultimatum did not mean a happy ending, unfortunately. When the players landed at the airport back home, an army truck immediately intercepted them. It took them straight to the presidential palace to face a furious Mobutu. Even though they had met his specific demand, he methodically destroyed their lives. He heavily cut their salaries, he blacklisted them from football, ending their careers entirely. He even banned them from traveling outside the country. Because of these incredibly vindictive punishments, most of these former national heroes were forced into extreme lifelong poverty.
So it leaves us asking, how often does history mock what it fails to understand? For decades, the world watched that 1974 highlight reel and just laughed at Ilunga and the Zaire team. We treated them as the punchline of a global joke, but underneath that viral moment of supposed ignorance was a dark, desperate fight for survival. It really makes you wonder, you know? What other moments in history are we entirely misjudging just because we can't see what's happening off camera? Thanks for exploring this hidden reality with me in today's Explainer. Keep questioning the things everyone else takes for granted.